Jamal stood in front of the mirror, taking a deep breath. His hands were shaking a little, and his heart was beating fast. Today was important, maybe the most important day of his life. He looked at himself carefully. His black suit wasn't new, but it was clean and ironed. His shoes were polished, and his tie was perfectly straight. His mother had helped him get ready. She even made him a small sandwich and tucked it in a paper bag with a note that said, "Believe in yourself." He grabbed his folder with copies of his resume and stepped outside. The air was cool, and the sun had just started to rise. Birds were chirping, and the streets were quiet. Jamal lived in a small neighborhood where most people struggled to find jobs. He had been applying for work for months. Some places didn't even call him back. Some said he didn't have enough experience. Others just ignored him, but this time something felt different. A good company had finally replied. A real company. With a nice office downtown and real chances to grow. The position wasn't fancy, just an office assistant, but Jamal didn't care. He needed a job. He wanted to help his mom with bills. He wanted to build a future, maybe even save for college. One day, he checked the time on his phone. He had about 40 minutes to get to the interview. He planned to take the shortcut through the neighborhood, catch the bus from Main Street, and reach the building 15 minutes early. He always believed in being on time. As he walked, his mind kept going over the possible questions they might ask him. Why do you want this job? Tell us about yourself. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? He had practiced the answers in front of the mirror many times. Still, he was nervous. He didn't have much work experience. But he had honesty, hard work, and a heart full of hope. He walked past a row of houses, noticing the cat sleeping on a fence and a man watering plants. The world felt slow, but inside Jamal's mind, everything was moving fast. This interview wasn't just about a job, it was a chance to prove himself. To show he was more than what people saw on the outside. He crossed the street and entered the shortcut through an older part of the neighborhood. The path was quiet and empty, except for a few parked cars. The shortcut would save him almost 10 minutes. He smiled to himself. He was doing everything right. But then, just as he turned the corner, he saw something unexpected. A car was parked halfway on the sidewalk, and an older man was standing next to it, looking frustrated. The man bent down, checked the back tire, and shook his head. The tire was flat. He opened the trunk and pulled out a spare, but it was clear he didn't know how to change it. Jamal slowed down. He could feel the clock ticking in his head. Every minute mattered now. If he helped the man, he might miss his interview. But if he walked away, would he be able to live with it? He stood still for a second, torn between two choices. His mother always told him, do what's right, even when no one's watching. That voice echoed in his heart. The old man looked up and noticed Jamal. Hey, do you know how to change a tire? He asked, clearly tired and a little embarrassed. Jamal looked down at his clean clothes, then at the man's worried face. He could have made an excuse. He could have said, sorry, I have somewhere to be. But instead, he smiled gently. Yes, sir, Jamal said. I can help. He took off his jacket, rolled up his sleeves, and walked toward the car. In that moment, he didn't know what would happen next. He didn't know who the old man was. He didn't know that this small act of kindness would change everything. All he knew was, helping someone felt more important than any job. Even the one that could change his life. Jamal placed his resume folder gently on the sidewalk and set his lunch bag next to it. The old man looked surprised but grateful as Jamal stepped closer. His suit pants might get dirty, but he didn't care anymore. The man was clearly struggling, and nobody else had stopped to help. I really appreciate this, the old man said, wiping sweat from his forehead. I haven't done this in years. My hands aren't what they used to be. Jamal smiled. No problem. I've changed a few tires before. I got you. The sun had started rising higher, warming the pavement. Jamal knelt by the flat tire and took off his jacket, folding it carefully and placing it on top of his lunch. He loosened the lug nuts first, then lifted the car using the jack the man had taken out of the trunk. The tools were old and a bit rusty, but Jamal worked through it like he'd done it a dozen times. The old man watched, clearly impressed. "You must be a mechanic," he said. Jamal chuckled. "No, sir, not even close. Just helped out a lot back home. My uncle taught me stuff like this." The man nodded. "Good man, your uncle. Not many people would stop and help a stranger like this, especially dressed like you are. You look like you're headed somewhere important." Jamal paused for a second, then kept working. "I had an interview this morning. At 10. I don't think I'll make it now, but it's okay." The old man blinked. "Wait, you're missing your interview to help me?" Jamal shrugged, trying to stay calm. "It's all right. Helping someone in need matters more. That job might have been great, but I wouldn't feel right walking past you." There was a silence. The only sound was the soft creak of metal as Jamal finished removing the old tire. He pulled out the spare, checked it for air, and began fitting it into place. The old man stared at him, quiet for a while. "What's your name, son?" "Jamal. I'm Walter." Jamal smiled politely. "Nice to meet you, Mr. Walter." Walter watched him work. He seemed like he wanted to say more, but didn't. His eyes held something: respect, maybe even surprise. The work took about 25 minutes. Jamal's hands were greasy, his pants stained at the knees, and his shirt collar loose from sweat. Still, he didn't complain once. When he tightened the last bolt and lowered the car, he gave the wheel a little tap. "That should do it," he said. Walter smiled wide. "You're a lifesaver, Jamal. Thank you, really." Jamal stood up and wiped his hands with a spare napkin from his lunch bag. "Glad I could help, sir. Drive safe, all right?" He grabbed his folder and bag, brushed the dust off his pants, and gave one last smile before turning to leave. "Wait," Walter called after him. "At least let me drive you to your interview." Jamal shook his head. "I'd be too late anyway." "It's okay. Some things happen for a reason." Walter looked like he wanted to argue, but Jamal was already walking away. With every step, Jamal felt mixed emotions. He had missed the interview. A big opportunity. But something deep inside told him he had done the right thing. As he walked back toward the bus stop, he looked down at his hands covered in grease. His clean suit was no longer perfect, but his heart felt clean. And even though disappointment sat heavy in his chest, he didn't regret his decision. Walter sat quietly in his car for a moment before starting the engine. He stared at Jamal walking off in the distance, thoughtful. Then, with a small smile, he picked up his phone and made a call. Jamal had no idea what he had just set in motion. He only knew he had chosen kindness, and sometimes, kindness opens doors no interview ever could. Jamal sat at the bus stop, still catching his breath. His hands were stained with grease, and small drops of sweat slid down his face. The cool morning air had turned warmer, but it didn't matter anymore. He looked at the time: 10:12 a.m. His interview had already started. He leaned back against the bench and let out a deep sigh. That job had been his best chance. He'd practiced for days. He even borrowed a tie from a neighbor. His mom had hugged him with teary eyes that morning. And now it was gone. But even as disappointment filled his chest, Jamal didn't feel regret. He remembered the way Walter had looked at him, the confusion, the disbelief, and then the quiet respect. He didn't know who Walter really was. He just knew he was an older man who needed help. And helping him had felt right. The bus pulled up and Jamal climbed in. The driver looked at him and raised an eyebrow. "Rough day already?" Jamal gave a tired smile. "Something like that." He took a seat in the back and stared out the window. As the city rolled by, his thoughts drifted. Maybe that company wouldn't have hired him anyway. Maybe someone else with a better degree or more experience would have gotten the job. Still, it hurt. He had wanted to prove he was good enough. Back home, his mother opened the door with hopeful eyes. But her face dropped slightly when she saw his dirty clothes and tired expression. "You're back early," she said gently. Jamal nodded and stepped inside. He placed the lunch bag on the table, untouched. Didn't make it. She didn't. Ask why. She just walked over and put a hand on his shoulder. "Sit, I'll get you some water." After a moment of silence, he told her everything. How he saw the man by the road. How he made a choice. And how he missed the interview. His goals. Mother didn't yell. She didn't say he was foolish. She simply listened. Then she smiled softly. "You did what I raised you to do," she said. "That's worth more than any job." Jamal looked down. "But we need money. You've been doing extra shifts at the diner. And I just let this opportunity go." She touched his face gently. "God has strange ways of opening doors, Jamal. Maybe this wasn't your door. Or maybe it still is." He didn't understand what she meant, but her words made his heart feel a little lighter. Meanwhile, across town, Walter sat at his large office desk, looking out the window. He was no longer the man struggling with a flat tire. He was Mr. Walter Grayson, founder and CEO of a multi-million-dollar company. He held Jamal's resume in his hand. He had picked it up from the sidewalk when Jamal wasn't looking. It was a simple paper. No fancy degrees, no powerful internships. But the man behind it had something far more rare heart. Walter thought about all the candidates who had come in for interviews that morning. Most were dressed sharply. Some had expensive degrees. But none of them had stopped to help him earlier that day. Dozens of cars had passed. Nobody had even slowed down. Except Jamal. Walter picked up the phone and dialed his assistant. "Find this young man, Jamal. I have his full name on the resume. Set up a meeting with him. Not in the main hall. Send him straight to me." The assistant sounded surprised. "Yes, sir, right away." Back in his small room, Jamal lay on his bed, staring at the ceiling. His clothes were still messy, and his tie hung loose around his neck. He felt a bit empty, like he had tried so hard, only to end up with nothing. But something inside him said otherwise. He had made a choice from the heart, not for reward, not for show, just because it was the right thing. And sometimes, the right thing doesn't give you anything right away. It just waits for the right time. That time was coming faster than Jamal could imagine. The next morning, Jamal sat at the kitchen table with his mother, slowly eating the sandwich he didn't touch yesterday. The TV played quietly in the background, but neither of them was really watching. Jamal's thoughts were far away. He kept wondering if the company had noticed he didn't show up. Maybe they had crossed his name off the list. Maybe they never even looked at his resume. A strange mix of hope and doubt sat heavy in his chest. Just then, his phone buzzed on the table. He stared at the screen. It was a number he didn't recognize. He answered hesitantly. "Hello?" "Hello," said a calm and professional voice. "Is this Jamal?" "Yes," he replied, heart starting to race. "This is Amanda from Grayson & Co. Mr. Walter Grayson would like to meet you today. Are you available to come in?" Jamal blinked. He looked at his mom, confused. "Wait, Mr. Grayson?" "Yes, the CEO," she said. "He requested a personal meeting with you at 11 a.m. in his office." Jamal's heart skipped a beat. Yes, I can come." "Great," she said. "Come directly to the top floor. Reception will guide you." When the call ended, Jamal stood frozen for a moment. Then he looked at his mom. "The CEO wants to meet me." Her eyes widened. "The man you helped?" He nodded slowly. "I think so." Within an hour, Jamal had cleaned up, changed into the same suit from the day before, and double-checked his resume folder. His mother straightened his collar and whispered, "Just be yourself." He took the bus again, but this time with a very Different feeling. He wasn't going in as a nervous interviewee. He was going in with curiosity and surprise. Out at the building, the security guard at the front door smiled and waved him in. "You must be Jamal. They're expecting you." The receptionist, a kind woman with glasses, led him straight to the private elevator. "Top floor," she said. "Mr. Grayson is waiting." Jamal stepped into the elevator, his heart thumping louder with every second. When the doors opened, he found a large office with tall glass windows and bookshelves. Behind a big wooden desk stood the same man he helped, the man with the flat tire. Walter smiled as Jamal entered. Right on time. Jamal stepped forward nervously. "Mr. Grayson, I didn't expect to see you again." Walter motioned for him to sit. "I'm glad you're here." Jamal sat slowly, still unsure why he was there. Walter leaned back in his chair. "You had an interview with my company yesterday morning, but instead of showing up, you helped an old man with a flat tire. Do you remember what you said to me?" Jamal thought for a second. "I said, helping someone in need felt more important than the interview." Walter nodded. "Exactly." He leaned forward now. "Let me tell you something, Jamal. You weren't late to the interview. That moment, by the road, that was your interview. And you passed with flying colors." Jamal's eyes widened. I don't understand," Walter smiled. "I didn't plan for my tire to go flat. That part was real. But what you did, that wasn't normal. Most people walk by. They pretend they don't see. You didn't. You chose kindness, even when it cost you something." Jamal sat in silence, still trying to take it all in. "I read your resume," Walter continued. "It's simple, but honest. And what you showed me yesterday can't be written on paper. It's character, and character is rare these days." Jamal took a breath. "So, why did you call me here, sir?" Walter smiled again, this time with warmth in his eyes. "Because I don't want someone like you working at the bottom. I want to mentor you, help you grow in this company. I want people to learn from your example." Jamal's heart was pounding. He didn't know what to say. Walter added softly, "But first, let me ask you one more question. Jamal, if you had known I was the CEO, would you still have stopped to help me?" Jamal didn't even blink. "Yes, sir, I would have. I didn't help you because of who you were. I helped you because you needed help," Walter grinned. "That's exactly what I was hoping you'd say." In that moment, Jamal realized life had a strange way of testing people. And sometimes, the biggest interviews don't happen in offices. They happen on sidewalks, in split seconds, in moments when no one's watching. And those moments can change everything. Jamal stepped out of the tall glass building with wide eyes and a full heart. The city outside looked the same, but to him, everything had changed. He walked slowly, his mind replaying every word Mr. Grayson had said. He still couldn't believe it. The man he had helped with a flat tire wasn't just anybody. He was the CEO of the company Jamal had dreamed of working for. And now, that same man had offered to personally mentor him. Not just a job, but a future. As he walked to the Kinro bus stop, he looked up at the sky. The sun was shining, and the clouds floated gently, like they had no worries. For the first time in a long while, Jamal felt the same. He reached home, and his mother opened the door. One look at Jamal's face, and she knew something big had happened. "Well?" she asked, holding her breath. Jamal laughed and hugged her tight. "He was the CEO, Mama, the man I helped. And he offered me the job." Tears filled her eyes as she held him. "I told you, doing good never goes unnoticed." They sat together, and Jamal told her everything: the private elevator, the big office, and how Mr. Grayson had said the interview already happened, on the street. His mother listened, her eyes never leaving his face. She smiled the whole time, proud and teary. Later that night, Jamal sat on his bed, still dressed in his suit, staring at the ceiling. He wasn't thinking about the job title or the office. He was thinking about the decision he made, the choice to help someone, even when it cost him something important. That choice, made from the heart, had led him here. And now he wasn't just starting a job. He was starting something much bigger. The next morning, Jamal returned to the company, but this time, not as a hopeful applicant. He was welcomed in as a new employee. The receptionist greeted him warmly. "Welcome to the team, Jamal." He smiled and nodded. "Thank you." A young woman from HR guided him through the halls. Everyone they passed looked curious. Some smiled, some whispered. Word had spread quickly. People had heard about the young man who helped the CEO without knowing who he was. "Is it true?" one intern asked quietly. "You gave up your interview to help someone?" Jamal just smiled. "I didn't give up anything. I gained something. Better." He was led to a new desk, not far from Mr. Grayson's own office. It wasn't huge, but it was his. His name was already printed on a small sign. A laptop was ready. A welcome packet sat beside it. Jamal sat down, ran his fingers across the desk, and took a deep breath. He had imagined working in a place like this so many times, but he never imagined getting here this way. A few minutes later, Mr. Grayson stopped by. No suit jacket today, just a friendly smile. "Settling in?" he asked. Jamal nodded. "Yes, sir. Thank you for everything." Mr. Grayson sat on the edge of the desk. "You know, Jamal, this company has hundreds of people. Most came here through interviews, resumes, and degrees. But you came here through heart." Jamal listened closely. "Talent is everywhere," Mr. Grayson continued. "But kindness? That's rare. I don't just want smart workers, I want good people. People like you." Jamal felt a wave of pride, but also humility. "I'll do my best, sir, every day." Mr. Grayson patted his shoulder. "That's all I ask." Over. The next few hours, Jamal was introduced to his team. He was trained, shown the systems, and given small tasks. He worked hard, asked questions, and paid attention. He wanted to prove Mr. Grayson right for believing in him. During lunch, some co-workers invited him to join them. As they sat around the table, someone asked again, "Why did you stop too?" "Help him, even though you had somewhere important to be." Jamal looked at them and said simply, "Because to me, a person in need is always important, whether they're a stranger or a CEO." The table fell silent for a moment. Then someone smiled and said, "We need more people like you around here." And just like that, Jamal wasn't the new guy anymore. He was part of something. Not just a job, not just a team. A place where kindness had power. Where a missed interview became the best decision of his life. And deep inside, Jamal knew he didn't miss the interview. He passed the real one. The world just took a different route to show him that 2 weeks had passed since Jamal started working at Grayson. And every morning, he arrived early, dressed neatly, ready to learn. He took notes, asked thoughtful questions, and stayed late when needed. He didn't complain. He didn't act like he deserved special treatment. He just worked hard. And people noticed. From the janitor to the junior managers, everyone liked him. He listened when others talked. He smiled when someone passed. He always said thank you and held the elevator for others. But there was still one thing. Jamal didn't fully understand why had Mr. Grayson offered him, out of everyone, such a personal opportunity. He had been given a role directly under the CEO. That almost never happened. Interns usually started far below, working their way up through years of proving themselves. But Jamal had skipped that line. He didn't feel like he had done anything special. All he had done was help someone with a flat tire. One evening, after most of the office had gone quiet, Mr. Grayson called Jamal into his office. "Come in, Jamal. Sit down." Jamal sat, a little nervous. "Did I make a mistake, sir?" Mr. Grayson laughed softly. "No, not at all. In fact, you've been doing great. I wanted to talk to you about something else. Something I think you should know." Jamal nodded, unsure. Mr. Grayson leaned back in his chair and folded his hands. "Do you know why I was out there that morning? Why I was in that broken car?" Jamal shook his head. "No, sir. I assumed you were just on the way to work." "Mr. Grayson smiled gently. "Not exactly. I was testing people." Jamal's eyes widened. "Testing?" The CEO nodded. "For years, I've wanted to run a real-world test. A way to see how people behave when no one's watching. Not in a job interview. Not in a boardroom. But out in the world when character truly shows." He paused. "That morning, we placed an old car on a quiet road. We removed the air from the tire, and I stood there, waiting." Jamal sat still, stunned. "You set it up?" "Not all of it. I was actually the one struggling with the jack," Mr. Grayson said with a chuckle. "But we had cameras hidden nearby. My assistant recorded how many people passed by." Jamal's heart started to race. 53 people walked or drove by. Some slowed down. A few stared. But no one stopped. Until you. Jamal swallowed hard. "So, you were testing people for jobs?" "No," Mr. Grayson said. "I was testing people for values. See, Jamal, I've built this company with hard work. But I want to pass it on to someone with heart. Someone who doesn't just chase success, but makes the world better while doing it." Jamal looked shocked. "But why me? I don't have the best resume. I didn't go to the best school." Mr. Grayson leaned forward. "Because you have something better. You saw someone in need and didn't hesitate. You gave up something important to help a stranger. That's not weakness, that's strength. And that strength is rare." Jamal looked down, overwhelmed. "I've interviewed 100 people," Mr. Grayson continued. "But in all those rooms, no one showed me what you did that day. Compassion, honesty, courage. That's why I want to train you personally. Not just for a job, but for leadership." Jamal looked up. "Leadership?" Mr. Grayson nodded. "Yes, you're young. But you've already passed the hardest test, doing the right thing when no one's watching." The room was quiet for a moment. Jamal's voice shook. I don't know what to say." "Just say you'll keep being the same person," Mr. Grayson said. "Stay true to who you are. And one day, you'll be sitting behind this desk." Jamal smiled slowly. Not with pride, but with gratitude. That night, as he rode the bus home, Jamal looked out the window with a quiet heart. He had no idea that a flat tire would lead to all this. That missing one interview would turn into something far greater. He pulled out his mother's old note from his wallet. "Believe in yourself." He held it tight, because now he truly did. The next few weeks at Grayson & Co. felt like a dream Jamal didn't want to wake up from. He worked closely with Mr. Grayson, attending meetings most new employees never got to sit in. He was allowed to ask questions, give ideas, and even take part in important decisions. But even with all this opportunity, Jamal never acted like he was better than anyone. He still greeted the janitors by name. He still ate lunch with the interns. And when a new employee looked lost in the hallway, Jamal would stop to help them find their way. People around the office began to admire him, not just for his sudden rise, but for how humble and kind he remained. Some whispered that he might be the future of the company. Others said Mr. Grayson had found something rare. But not everyone was happy. A few longtime managers didn't understand why Jamal got special attention. They had worked at the company for years, climbed the ladder slowly. To them, Jamal's story seemed like luck. One of them, Mr. Carter, pulled Jamal aside one day. "You're doing well," he said with a tight smile, "but don't let it get to your head. The business world is tough. Not everyone's going to like that you skipped steps." Jamal nodded respectfully. "I understand, sir. I'm just trying to learn and work hard." Mr. Carter looked him over and walked away, leaving Jamal with a strange feeling in his chest. He hadn't done anything wrong, but now he knew success brings attention, both good and bad. Later that week, Mr. Grayson invited Jamal to join him at a charity event the company was hosting. It was a formal dinner for underprivileged youth, held at a beautiful hall downtown. Guests included business leaders, city officials, and young students who needed support. Jamal wore his best suit and walked in with quiet confidence. He shook hands, introduced himself politely, and listened more than he spoke. During dinner, Mr. Grayson stood up to give a speech. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, "I want to tell you a short story about a young man who gave up something important to do something right." As he spoke, all eyes turned toward Jamal. Some guests already knew the story. Others leaned in to hear it. "He didn't know I was the CEO," Mr. Grayson said. "He only knew I needed help." And he stopped without hesitation. "That is the kind of leader I want to build my company around." The room applauded. Jamal felt his face flush with emotion. It wasn't pride. It was a deep sense of purpose. After the speech, people approached him, shaking his hand, thanking him for his kindness. A woman in a wheelchair smiled and said, "My son needs someone like you to look up to." But not long after, another moment tested him quietly and unexpectedly. As he stepped outside for some air, Jamal saw a young waiter nearby struggling to carry a tray of dirty dishes. People passed him, too busy to notice. The waiter slipped, nearly dropping everything. Without thinking twice, Jamal stepped forward and grabbed the tray just in time. "Whoa, thank you, sir," the young man said, shocked. "No problem," Jamal said, helping him steady the tray. Another guest nearby saw it happen. "That's the boy from the CEO's story," he whispered to someone else. But Jamal didn't care who was watching. He hadn't helped for show. He helped because it was who he was. Later that night, as he rode home in Mr. Grayson's car, the CEO looked over and asked, "You know what I noticed tonight?" Jamal smiled. "What's that?" "You didn't change," Mr. Grayson said. "Even after all this attention, you helped that waiter the same way you helped me, with no cameras, no expectations." Jamal looked out the window. It just felt right. Mr. Grayson nodded. "That's why I trust you. Some people pass a test once, but you pass it every day." Jamal didn't answer right away. He was thinking, not about money or power or fame, but about the kind of person he wanted to be. Not just at work, not just in front of others, but always. And in that quiet ride home, he understood something powerful. Real character isn't proven in big moments alone. It's proven again and again, in small acts, in quiet choices, when no one claps and no one sees. That's what makes someone truly great. It had been 3 months since Jamal started working at Grayson & Co. Each day, he arrived with the same quiet focus and warm smile. He wasn't the most experienced person in the building, or the one with the fanciest degree. But there was something about him that everyone noticed: his heart. He didn't just work hard. He cared. If someone dropped their coffee in the hallway, Jamal helped clean it up. If a new intern looked nervous, he gave them a kind word. If the receptionist seemed overwhelmed, he offered to carry documents for her. It wasn't part of his job description. He just did it. And Mr. Grayson saw everything. One morning, Jamal was called into the CEO's office again. He walked in calmly, not nervous, just curious. Mr. Grayson was standing by the window, looking out at the busy city. "Do you know what today is?" he asked without turning around. Jamal shook his head. "No, sir." Mr. Grayson turned to face him, smiling. "Today marks 90 days since you joined us." Jamal nodded. "It feels like it went by so fast." "I've watched you closely, Jamal," Mr. Grayson said. "Not because I was looking for mistakes, but because I was hoping to confirm what I believed on that first day." Jamal stood still, listening. "You've proven that your kindness Wasn't a one-time thing, Mr. Grayson continued. You've shown leadership through compassion, strength through service, and loyalty through humility. He walked over to his desk and picked up a sealed envelope. This, he said, handing it to Jamal, is your official letter of promotion. You've earned a permanent position on our leadership development track. With it comes more responsibilities and more opportunities to grow. Jamal slowly took the envelope, eyes wide. I don't know what to say. Say you'll keep being the same person, Mr. Grayson replied softly. That's all I ask, Jamal smiled. I will, sir, I promise. As he left the office, people clapped quietly in the hallway. Word had spread. Some had heard parts of his story, others had just seen the way he treated people. In that moment, Jamal felt proud, but not because of the title or the new position. He felt proud because he had stayed true to himself. That night, Jamal sat at the dinner table with his mother, the promotion letter in her hands. She read it slowly, then looked at him with tears in her eyes. You did it, baby, she whispered. We did it, Jamal said, smiling. Everything you taught me, it brought me here. His mother placed the letter down and pulled out a small, worn paper from her purse. The same note she had written and slipped into his lunch bag on the day of the interview. Believe in yourself, it said. Jamal looked at the note, then back at her. I think I finally do, she nodded. And now the world does too. The next morning, Jamal arrived at work early as always. But something was different. His name was now on the team board, under the Future Leaders section. Employees greeted him with respect. Some smiled wider. Some stopped to shake his hand, but Jamal didn't let it change him. When he saw the security guard struggling to lift a box at the entrance, he didn't hesitate to help. When a young woman in HR seemed stressed, he brought her coffee. When a printer jammed, he fixed it. He was still Jamal, the same man who had stopped for a flat tire, the same man who helped without thinking of reward. Later that day, a reporter came to interview Mr. Grayson for a magazine article. Why did you choose Jamal? The reporter asked. Out of all the talented candidates, what made him stand out? Mr. Grayson smiled and pointed to a framed photo on his desk. It showed Jamal crouched beside a car, helping with a tire, unaware a camera was watching. Because he helped when no one else did, Mr. Grayson said. He didn't know who I was, he just knew I needed help. That's the kind of heart I want leading this company. The article was published a week later, and Jamal's story spread far beyond the company. People across the city, and even online, shared it as an example of kindness, humility, and how character still matters. But Jamal didn't care about fame. He didn't do it for attention. He did it because it was right. And in the end, that one simple act, helping a stranger on the side of the road, had changed his entire life, not because of luck, not because of chance, but because he chose heart over hurry and kindness over convenience. And that choice made all the difference.